Be flexible. Change your mind. This is something, shouldn't bring up my husband, but I will. This is something with my husband that we've kind of fought back and forth. I changed my mind. And that would bug him. But you said, whatever, and but I've changed my mind. And I'm not an indecisive person, but you have to be flexible, and especially when you're dealing with family and business and things that come up. And it's hard to balance. I don't want to be unprofessional because I just canceled a meeting with, the CEO of another company or something because my son got sick. But you have to be flexible, and you have to be okay with that. And again, be honest. The communication, letting people know, employees, if something happens, but you're taking that back. As a CEO, you're accepting that the same thing's going to happen with your employees. You have to be flexible with them. If something happens, and especially tied to family, you kind of have to roll with that and you have to know that. But that's okay. Rigidity is a weakness, vice, changing your mind, that kind of thing. Because again, I've just seen a lot where it seems that, changing your mind or going back and forth is looked at as wishy-washy. Well, it's not necessarily. So rigidity is the weakness, not the flexibility. Okay. This is the 50%. Spend as much time with your family as you do with your business. I think that's the minimum, at least for me, and I think for most women. I think men probably should do that as well, but they don't, and so we can work on them for that. But and if the balance tips, if it shifts, that's great. That's even better. Again, you're going to give up some things. You're going to maybe give up, that extra contract that you might have gotten, if you had spent more time. But you know what? When it comes down to it in the long run, no regrets. That's okay. We all know this. You don't have to say this. Women are multitaskers, so you can do it. It is intimidating, the balancing the family and everything, but we know we're multitaskers, and most of us are very good multitaskers. One of the things I'm not so good at, and the reason I kind of drop it off, is the phone, because I can't multitask on the phone. Because one of the things that is really unprofessional is if you're talking on the phone and you're being professional, and all of a sudden you just stop because you just saw an email and you start answering your email. That's not a good thing. So what I do most of the time is my phone is gone. So my cell phone, I won't answer my work phone. But if you email me, you'll get an email right away, because I can be emailing and writing a proposal and looking at Jillian, my daughter's little drawing that she's come up to show me, all at the same time. The phone doesn't work. But so we are multitaskers. We need to use that to our benefit, and you can do it. That's what's really going to help you balance everything. Quality time is any time. That again seems like a no-brainer, but quality time is. If you're with your child, if your kids are at home and they're playing and you've got your laptop and you're just sitting near them, it's quality time. You don't have to feel like you're being, I'm not giving you 100% of my time. Now, I would say if my daughter comes up to me and she's done she doesn't touch me, she'll just, mommy, 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 mommy. And I've gotten where, because I work at home a lot, I've tuned her out and she'd get really upset. So I finally said, you know what, it's my fault. If you come up to me and you're trying to get my attention, just tap me and say, excuse me, mommy. And so that's our signal, and that's what she does. She'll tap me and say, excuse me, mommy, and then I know 100%. And then I'm looking her in the eyes, because you wouldn't sit there talking to a customer on your BlackBerry, and listening to them, because that wouldn't be polite and that wouldn't be professional. You don't want to do the same thing to your family. You don't want to be, when someone's talking to you, if you're on your, okay, stop doing that. If you're on your laptop and they're talking to you, you still have to make sure that you're focusing and showing them, yeah, you're important. I'm not choosing one over the other. But again, anytime. We have the wireless at our house. That I have a couple of them so that I can get any point, and I can watch my kids swim, and I can be on my laptop, and I can be out in the garage doing something. And so anytime is quality time. Involve your family in your work. I do this with my kids. I work most of the time at home, which again, that same CEO was like, you don't work out of your office, you work at home. You have this company and you're at home most of the time. I'm like, yeah, it's my choice. And I have my own little office. I can lock the door, so that is an option if I have to. I have mute. I have all those things that will let me do that at home. And in doing that, I'm involving my kids in my work. And I talk to them like little adults. My son, despite his genetic disorder, is very, very brilliant. And it's a wonderful story in itself, and how well he's done. where I'm on the foundation for Prader-Willi research for his disorder, and it's a good story. But anyway, he's very, very smart, so I can explain what I'm doing exactly to him. And we'll interact just like little professionals. And when I say I'm going to a meeting, I'll say, oh, who are you meeting with, and what were you talking about? Again, he just turned 6, but he just feels like, you know, it's a part of, he's involved in mommy's life, and it's no big deal. It makes it a little easier when, you know, mommy, will you take us to the zoo, or we want to go do something, and I have to say, oh, I'm sorry, you know, I've got a meeting. Oh, and then they're interested in that. It's not like, oh, mommy's working again, you know, it's slump off kind of thing. So, so keep them included. And I always tell my son that I'm going to hire him someday. I said, he's got a phenomenal memory, and he will remember his doctor's appointments. He will remember anything that's going on. And I just keep telling him, you know what? You got a job, son. You got a job in about 10 years, 15 years, whatever it takes, you have a job. So it makes him feel good. So I include them. And again, always no regrets. That's the big one. Okay, go on to the next one. I'm behind. Oh, this is my, did anybody die? I have a lot of employees, actually I have a lot of employees who are good friends of mine, who I've known for a long time, and I trust. And so we cross the line a little bit in that, you know, boss versus friend. But one of the things I've been known for is that, I don't know how, but that calming effect, talk me down from the ledge. You know, I'll get the phone call, okay, talk me off the ledge, talk me off the ledge, you know. And my comment is always, did anybody die? And part of this comes from my son. When he was born with this genetic disorder, he was born in a Navy hospital, and I'm not knocking Navy medicine, although they screwed up my knee too, so that's, you know, but anyway, he was born in a Navy hospital, and when he was first born, he had a little punctured lung, took him to the NICU. All of a sudden he started losing all these reflexes, and pretty much soon he wasn't doing anything. And they couldn't figure out what was wrong, and they're doing all these tests, and they do a CAT scan. And he was 4 days old. I'd gone home, called him back to say, you know, what's the results of this CAT scan? I want to know what's going on. And the guy didn't want to tell me over the phone. He said, no, you need to tell me now, because I'm not driving an hour to Portsmouth, you know, to be told whatever. So he said, well, it looks like a third of his brain is missing. He said that where you should have ridges, it's smooth. And he started going into this whole thing. Okay, all right, okay. Hung up the phone. First thing I did was start researching brain damage. You know, what can I do to fix this kind of thing, you know? Second thing I did, and we started going in there, was to say, I'd like an MRI. I want to know the extent of the damage. I also want to figure out what I did wrong. You know, what did I do? Was there something I did to result in this? So we asked for this MRI, and we took him home 4th of July, and we had to do not resuscitate on him because we had friends who had a severely disabled child, and we knew quality of life was not the greatest. And so, you know, and very strong Christian and believe, you know, in that. And so it's in God's hands. We'll put a do not resuscitate on him. So we took him home over 4th of July. I called Portsmouth to find out what the results were for the MRI. And over the phone, they said, it confirms the same thing, the brain damage and all that. So on the Monday after 4th of July, we went to this home for disabled infants, and there was one bed. You know, again, we thought, oh, that's divine intervention. There's one bed. It's round-the-clock care. He'll get all this attention. So we show up there, and I'm sitting there, just dropped him off. He's 2 weeks old. It's just horrible. And came back, was sitting in the doctor's office, and this fax came across. The nurse brought it in, put it in front of the doctor, and the doctor looked up and he said, you need to take this do not resuscitate off this child right now. And I was like, well, why? What do you mean? He said, because there's nothing wrong with his brain. This MRI shows you there's nothing wrong with his brain. See, I haven't talked about this in a while, so I probably started crying. But anyway, and so we were like, you got to be kidding me. Are you sure it says MRI? Are you sure it's? And he said, absolutely positive. There's nothing wrong with his brain. So at that point, we kind of started, all right. And for me, I was like, all right, it's not brain damage. I can deal with anything else. I can handle this. So we started all these tests. And after about 6 weeks, we left him actually in the infant home because they had the round-the-clock, you know, test him, do this blood draw, check for muscle, this and that, all those kind of things that they could check out. And again, we were now away from Portsmouth Naval Hospital. We were over at CHKD, which is the Children's Hospital in Norfolk. So anyway, make a very long story short, turned out after 6 weeks, we brought him home actually, so it might have been 7. They came back and said he has Prader-Willi syndrome, which is a rare genetic disorder. And actually, if you look at it on the internet, it kind of is a little depressing. It's got all this negative stuff. But again, it was like, I can deal with this. I can fix Prader-Willi syndrome.